All right. I think we'll get started to be conscious of everyone's time and these panelists a chance to share their wealth of information. I'm Pearson, the Director of Admissions at the Upper School. I'm looking at the list. I think I've spoken to most of you. So now you get to hear from the lovely people on the other side in Steamboat Mountain School on a daily basis. I will be asking them a series of questions and allowing them to answer. I will note that you can ask questions. At the bottom, there should be a Q&A box where you can input your questions. And we will either answer as we go or answer at the end, depending on what the questions are. So know that we are looking at those and we will be paying attention and ask those questions as we go. So going forward, I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves. Gina, why don't you kick us off?
Sure thing. My name is Gina Wither. I have been a teacher at Steamboat Mountain School for this is my 26th year. I teach science classes, and I also run our competitive ski and snowboard program, and I work in the dorms and I lead outdoor trips and all those things that we do here at Steamboat Mountain School. And I'm also the parent of a graduating senior this year.
Thanks, Gina. How about Millie?
Okay, hi. My name is Millie Flanigan. I am a parent of two Steamboat Mountain School kids, a daughter who's a senior this year, and a son who graduated in 2021. So this will be me wrapping up 8 years at Steamboat Mountain School. I'm feeling a lot of concern about what my life will look like without this in it. I'm also a physician assistant family practice for 23 years and now exclusively in mental health. So working as a psychiatric PA for the last 4 years and doing a lot of work with teens and young adults and just really interested in making that connection with young people.
Thank you, Millie. Next up, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I'm the newest member in this group for sure. I'm Lauren Lieberman, and I started in January as the director of college counseling at the Steamboat Mountain School. So, for as kind of broad and deep as the knowledge is with Gina and Millie and so many others, I come to the Steamboat Mountain School with a pretty deep knowledge base on helping students and families apply to college. I started my career in selective college admissions at the University of Chicago, and over the past nearly 25 years, I've been on the admissions side. I've worked in several different independent schools, and I'm really excited to be working with the Steamboat Mountain School kids and families right now because I just so believe in the work that the school is doing with the kids, and I can't wait to be a part of helping them tell their stories to colleges and to anybody else who wants to listen to their stories, really, scholarships or anything else that they're applying for. I also have two kids of my own, and I reside in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I work in a hybrid way, coming to campus several times a year while meeting with students and families and parents virtually throughout the year. So if there are any boarding families on here or other families, we kind of connect at all different times of the day and night, depending on what works with families.
Thank you, Lauren. So that's our amazing group that's going to be speaking today. Like I said, I'm going to be kicking it off with some questions, and they're going to be answering them. And again, if you have your own questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to be able to ask questions, and we'll keep tabs on the questions that are being asked. So Millie, you're our first. I have my question for you. Reflecting on your decision to choose Steamboat Mountain School, what was the journey like before committing to Steamboat Mountain School and then into your students' first year?
Well, I love that question because I can remember, especially with Bodie, who's our son, both of our kids went all the way through the school system here in Steamboat. And I think we thought they would continue doing that and felt good about that choice. And somewhere right before Bodie's freshman year, I went to a Steamboat Mountain School graduation, which, if you haven't ever been to one, is worth going to. And I watched all of the teachers. They all give a speech about every single student in depth and about their whole experience. and they know them so well. And I walked away from there and I remember saying, this is what I want for my kids. I want them to have this experience. So that's how we started down the road. With that, Bodie was uncertain. He didn't know about the social. He had lots of friends. He was a ski racer, and he wasn't sure about coming to a smaller school. That was definitely a piece to the puzzle that he was concerned about. And I think what I learned through that journey with him was that he had a lot of moments where he thought it was the best decision he ever made before he was going to go, and then he had a lot of moments where he thought, what the heck am I doing? And that was really all part of his process. And looking back now, I can see how important it was that I really was there to and both my husband and I, to support him and say, like, it's a big decision for these kids. It wasn't like, yes, that's it, and I'm so glad. He was unsure. And as he went into his first year, I can remember he came home the first night after the big barbecue and said, I think I made the wrong choice. I don't think this is it. My friends are all going to the high school. And we said, you know what, Bo, just hang in there. Let's just see what we can get through. And we just really knew, a previous parent told us, get through Desert Week, when the kids go away for a whole week together out to the desert. And so we kind of worked our way through Desert Week, and he came home from Desert Week and said, yep, this is my school. And I think my take home from all of that would be, this is a big decision, and it doesn't necessarily always look easy as your kids are making it, and to not maybe put that pressure on them, but to really support them and know it's hard. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not the right decision. And I think that's what we learned now, hindsight being 2020. Both of our kids had moments, and now both of our kids looking back would say it was the right decision. So that was sort of the first part to that question. Was it wasn't easy, and it was a big decision, and there were lots of times of uncertainty, but we made it through, and now looking back, they both feel really good.
Thank you, Millie. And just panelists, if you guys have anything to add to any of the questions, just make sure you chime in. The next question is for Gina and Millie. Gina, can each of you share a defining moment at Steamboat Mountain School that highlights how the school's unique approach has impacted your child or family? And we'll start with you, Gina.
Sure. Steamboat Mountain School has had a gigantic impact on my family because we live here and we eat here, and my son was born on campus. But like Millie mentioned, it was not a foregone conclusion that my son Owen would come to school here. Our public school in Steamboat, I don't know how many participants are local, but it's a good school. And he also went to the public schools K through 8. So I think in the years leading up to the decision that we made, I can recall sitting in faculty meetings and looking around the room at the incredible group of teachers in that faculty meeting, just talking about students and the care and the attention and just the genuine investment the teachers feel about each kid. Is investment the right word? I think you know what I mean. Like, just those teachers were sitting around that table really pouring themselves into, like, how can we make Johnny into the best kid that he can possibly be? And that was really, I think, when it clicked for me into, like, yes, this is going to be, I think, what we're going to hope Owen wants to do. And luckily he was on board. But like Millie said, it wasn't always a foregone conclusion, and it wasn't always super easy. But I think the fact that this school, we do so many varied things with the students, from, difficult, challenging classes. We start each day with chores where we're cleaning and sweeping and cleaning toilets right alongside the students. Then we go camping, we go skiing, the travel program. We're able to see our students in such different environments that I think the way we do it at the school allows kids to shine in ways that teachers can see them when they shine, and then help them grow in the other areas, if that makes sense. So for Owen, my son, he, as a freshman coming in, really shined more in the outdoor trips right away than he did as a student. He had to grow into his sort of academic self, which he has now as a senior. And so it was great to see him succeed in those other areas. Whereas I think if my son had gone to a regular school where he was only known in the classroom, I don't think people would have seen him for all he is.
Thank you. How about
Yeah.
you, Millie?
And I love that, and I would agree wholeheartedly um, with the defining moment. I just can't help but I come back to it every time is watching both of our kids feel uncertain, like I think almost all kids do at age 14 or 15, and not quite know who they are, and just, not comfortable in their skin because that's sort of the nature of being a teenager. And I think the approach in the school that really impacted both kids was the connection with the faculty and staff. I think it was the small classrooms. It was going on these trips. It was watching Bodie, like dropping him off in the parking lot, and Merritt so nervous on their first trip. And they just like, you couldn't get out of your car and like, don't look over. And do I have all the right stuff? And just so much angst. And then watching them roll home from those trips and just kind of like, they just seemed so much more comfortable in their skin. And they just seemed like, they were just feeling a little bit like they could show themselves. I think I've often thought with teachers and school conferences, I wish they knew the kid I know, because it's hard to know. I mean, we know our kids so well, and we know every part of them, and they're relaxed, and we can see them all. But at school, that doesn't always happen. And I've left a lot of conferences thinking, okay, well, I just wish they knew how funny she is, or I wish they knew how sweet he is, or whatever, that they're interested in this. And I think the over and over the small classes, the outdoor trips, the eating lunch with your teachers, those connections really allowed our kids to grow into themselves. And that would, to me, would be, the defining moment for us was they just got more confident. I watch our daughter get up in front of the whole school and, do morning announcements and think, wow, that when she came in ninth grade, I couldn't have guessed that in a million years, that she would feel comfortable enough in a setting and with a group of people to kind of fully express herself. And I just think, that's the piece that I love more than anything, for sure.
Thank you. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiential programs. Gina touched on it a little bit, but most of you know we do a global studies trip. We have Desert Week. We go on a lot of outdoor adventures. We have hands-on experiences in the classroom. And Gina, we're sort of wondering, like, how does this help students adapt and thrive in new environments after they've been through these different experiences that SEMO Mountain School has to offer?
Sure. I think as prospective parents, you are considering all the options that your kids have, and so you're looking like what is going to be the benefit of sending my kid to Steamboat Mountain School. And I want to talk in particular about our global travel program, but everything I say really applies to all the trips we do with students. So Desert Week and the beginning of the year camping trip, and even the weekend trips we do in the winter, maybe a hot trip or even a trip to Denver. Um, and it is that we truly, I think every boarding school probably talks about like pushing boundaries and taking your student out of their comfort zone, but I think we really do it. So when I'll be leading, I leave for in 2 weeks for my, I think, 15th global studies trip. And I'm taking a group to Indonesia. And I'm thinking of a particular example. A couple of years ago, I led a group to Chile and Patagonia where we were backpacking for 12 days. And I had a student with me who was really not certain how she felt about backpacking for that long, hiking for that long, and all the things that come with being in the backcountry. And watching her just grow into it and realize how capable she is and the self-confidence that she grew, the skills she mastered. She really thrived in that environment. And it's something that she never would have done, I think, if she hadn't been a student here and gone on these trips with us. And over again, I used to run our alumni program. I talked to students who have gone away to college, and they largely feel better prepared than their, dorm um, friends, just because we have taken them out of their comfort zone. They've learned how to not know what to do and then figure it out, ask for help. Um, and so I think that's really what we're doing. Teaching the
Awesome.
kids to be adventurous. Yeah.
Thank you, Gina. Lauren, this is a big one. This is for you. So with all of those experiences that our students get to go on, how do those specific experiences shape a student's application process coming from Steamboat Mountain School, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we've heard about is what then feeds and fuels who these young people are as college applicants. So when I worked in admissions, we had like two overarching questions that we applied to every application. Who do we imagine the student will be in our classrooms? And who do we imagine the student will be in our community? And we got at that through the different pieces of the application. So the teacher recommendations and obviously the transcript were sort of the best indicators of who a student would be in our classrooms. Who would the student be in the community? That was how had they spent their time? How did they talk about what matters to them and why? And how did other people talk about them? And so when you think about this experience that Millie and Gina and Pearson and probably others have described to you, it all leads to kids being able to think about and articulate, and then having people who know them really well articulate to colleges exactly who this person is going to be in a community. And colleges are more conscious than ever about having kids who are resilient, who can work through difficult things, who can keep an open mind, who bring a broad global perspective, who can see things from a different side. Like all the things that they care most about in crafting a college community are experiences that the mountain school is putting in front of them year after year after year, with a little bit more support at the high school level, which is appropriate, so that when they fall apart or fall down or say that they can't do night 12 on the backpacking trip, like that there's a lot of people around them who say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And we're going to get you through this. And you don't really have an option because you have all of us here to get you through that. And so when it comes to like writing essays or other people writing the recommendations, I was at the holiday dinner this year and sat at a table with students who just told me, like, they were laughing a lot about experiences that were really, really hard in the moment. And they were able to say, just to be clear, this was not funny when it was happening, but in hindsight, I can't believe we did this. And after this experience, I felt like I could do anything that I wanted. And like building that confidence and building that sense of self and building that sense of place for who you are in this big world, like that's what goes into a college application. And so I really think that our students are uniquely equipped to do this. And it's not just the application, it's obviously then being equipped to thrive in college, but the application is its own kind of beast. And it doesn't always equate to the same skills it takes to be in college is the process, but their voice is so authentic. And these are kids who have found themselves, not entirely, right? They're still kids and they're still 17 and 18 as they go to college, or 19, but as they're applying, they've had experiences that have forced them to think about who they are and what they care about and who they used to be and how they've changed. And that sort of reflection that is built into the mountain school experience is exactly what colleges are looking for when it comes time to apply.
Thank you, Lauren. That's a fabulous answer. And it's always nice hearing your perspective. Even though you haven't been here as long, you're already getting that little tidbit from Steamboat Mountain School.
Yeah.
Millie, from your parent perspective, what was Bodie's experience during his first year of college? I think a lot of parents are, curious about the firsthand experiences coming from Steamboat Mountain School, because we can talk a lot about what we do, but until their student is actually in college, it's really important to see like how it actually plays out.
So That question. So he is now a junior at Boston College. So he did go a long ways away. I have to start because I just remembered this last night. I have to answer this question first and foremost by, Bodie got he's our first child going to college. We hadn't really, we didn't know the ropes, and he got something that said he needed to be there for orientation. And so we thought, well, okay, orientation, it was in the middle of the summer. It was just for a weekend, like 2 days. And we thought, well, that's great. It's his orientation. We got him a ticket. We just said, Bode, like, go do your orientation. It should be great. And sent him off on the plane. He was a skier at Steamboat Mountain School, so he didn't get to travel on foreign trips, but he traveled a lot. And he went to Boston, got an Uber. There may have been a hotel involved, I'm not sure. And he just trekked on to Boston College campus that first day, pulling his luggage behind him. He had to ask for directions. His phone might have been dead. And, I think so. He said, there were so many people who were so shocked that I just came by myself to orientation, which in hindsight, I think, what were we thinking? But what we were thinking is we didn't have any concerns about him being able to navigate going to college orientation. It just didn't cross our minds that we would need to go with him to orientation. Now, we went to drop him off to college because, we knew that was our job. But I think it was his experience at the Steamboat Mountain School that made us feel like, no, he knows how to navigate the world. He's, figured out harder things than this. So that's the first part, is that I thought he was very prepared. The second part, academically speaking, I think he was pleasantly surprised that he felt very prepared, and that compared to, he had lots of great roommates and, classmates and things that probably were working a little bit harder to sort of get up to speed than he experienced. He felt like he could get the work done. He really made the most of talking to his teachers, which I think that just doesn't happen. BC has 8,000 students. Some of his classes were a little bit bigger. But being in those classrooms at the mountain school, he was really used to being in relationship with his teachers. And from the get-go, whether it be his calculus teacher and going to all the office hours or going up after class, he felt like they really knew him, and that not only academically did he have what he needed to write the papers and take the tests, but that the experience that he, learned at the mountain school of being connected with your teachers and having fun in class. He'll say, I would talk to him and he'd say, I was the only one who raised my hand to answer the questions. He's like, I think they have relationships with teachers at the Steamboat Mountain School that, they know them as humans, and humans don't want to stand up and ask a question and have a bunch of blank faces. And so, I think that sort of fun in the classroom, that levity of being with your teachers, knowing they're there for you and taking advantage of that. And I think it surprised some of his teachers. But I think at the end of the day, it has made college much more enjoyable for him.
Thanks, Millie. Lauren, this is for you again, and I think you probably touched on it, but you might have a little bit more to add. But how does a college perceive an education like Steamboat Mountain School and the experiences kids have here? You hear, some parents, like in town, it would be the public school versus Steamboat Mountain School. And then what are colleges seeing as those difference? Or if someone is coming as a boarding student, their local public school or a private school, are there differences and things that college look at when they're looking at the school as a whole that students are coming from? Yep.
All right. Sometimes there's a fear of going to a small school that colleges won't know the school. A very common question in a school environment like this is, well, you don't really have APs, or you don't have sort of some of the most recognizable indicators of rigor or accomplishment. Like, how is a college going to understand what my kid has done? And I think there's a huge advantage to being in a school that doesn't have those, because it gives every kid the opportunity to shine in different ways. Um, a college is going to look at what a student does within the context that they're in. So there's absolutely no disadvantage to a student at Steamboat Mountain School not being in APs. They're not available. Now, colleges generally want to see students who challenge themselves, who take advantage of opportunities. And so that's not an issue. And it's sort of on us as a school to articulate in those recommendations, in what's called the school profile, what we offer and how students take advantage of those things. But having been on the admission side and then having um, gone back to the admissions process again this fall in a highly selective program, like I was reminded that what they're looking for is, what does a student do with what they're given, not what are all the things that are given. Like they look at a student within that. And I think, I think our students just have, like, sort of what Gina was saying about being able to shine in so many different ways, I think benefits the majority of our students. And I think colleges, I mean, I think what we offer is pretty cool and exciting for colleges. Our kids they're not cookie cutter. They don't all kind of look the same. They don't all they're from different backgrounds. Their family backgrounds are different. That they aspire to different things. There are certain things that drive some students that are very different than others. And even within a small community, there are so many different kinds of kids who and families who have different goals. And I think that uniqueness really comes through. So I don't, at a big school, if you're in an applicant pool with 20 other kids from your class, like that's harder. That's a different thing. It's harder to stand out. It is not hard to stand out at Steamboat Mountain School. And I don't know what like the highest number of applications to any one school in a year, like six, eight at the most, and that's gonna be CU. Like that's, and that's what it is. So I think it's an advantage, and I think it makes it easier for students to distinguish themselves.
Thank you, Lauren. All right. Well, I have one last question for everyone, and then we're going to wrap up. So if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. Also, if you would like to be in touch with any of these wonderful panelists and ask them specific questions, maybe at a later time, email me and I will make sure you get in touch with these guys. They are available and always usually willing to chat with anyone who does have questions about Steamboat Mountain School. So for the wrap-up question, Millie, we can start with you. Do you have like a nugget of advice that you would give a prospective family wondering if Steamboat Mountain School is the right fit for them or their child?
Well, I mean, I think the advice would be, if you can, I think coming to campus is really powerful, to just be here, because so much of what goes on here is about the place and the people. And so I think, it wasn't just that it was sandwich day and Bodie loved the sandwiches, because we did hear about that on the day he visited, but I'd like to think it was more than that. I think the other advice is to stay open, and as parents to know this is a big decision and it's a hard decision. And just because the kids go back and forth and resist and say yes and say no, and I'm not sure, and push it off, and that just as a parent to hang in there with them and, to help them figure out where they're going to land. And it might be at a different school than this one, but I think we often think like things need to be black and white and they need to just decide. And once they decide, they better like it. And I just don't think that's realistic. And I think we learned with our kids, they both pushed back and had moments of major crisis. And now, knowing what we know, both of them out of the school, it was by far the best decision that they ever made, that we ever made. But that doesn't mean it was black and white and easy. So I think, really go into it with an open mind. Know your role as a parent is just to support, and know this is hard. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not the right thing. And you're just there to support them along the way.
Awesome. Gina, you want to go?
Yes. What advice would I give to prospective families wondering if Steamboat Mountain School is the right fit? I have worked here for a long, long time, and I have seen all kinds of kids come here and thrive. And I think it is, hopefully you've heard us say this over and over again. It's the really cool programming with this classroom, outdoors, global. It's the people that care greatly about your child, right? If your child comes to school here, you are entering into this group that cares about who your kid becomes. And our founder, Lowell Whiteman, was really into the idea of, growing the whole child and having like wholesome adventure. And I know the word wholesome isn't a very cool word necessarily right now, but as a parent, when we watch our kids navigating the world that is so fast and so digital and, so phone based, it's been such a gift for our child to go here, and have these great experiences with his classmates, with his teachers, and to take advantage of the opportunities that he's had here. So I think as a parent, you have a lot of good options. Um, but Steamboat Mountain School is a really special place. And uh, I personally feel very fortunate that my son was able to come here.
Thanks, Gina. Lauren.
I mean, I totally agree with everything that's been said. I think like it's important to have conversation as a family about like what are the goals? What are you hoping high school will be? And um I think this has kind of been alluded to, but in my time on campus as a newcomer, I've just been so struck by how healthy the kids seem. And I mean holistic health. Like, I don't see phones at school. And I know that that seems like such a little thing, but I have worked in many schools and they all have the same policy, which is no phones at school. And at very few of them are there actually no phones at school. When you sit down for lunch, kids are sitting together, they're talking to each other, they're looking at each other. And I think because of the mix of things they do, it's not that nobody struggles with health issues or mental health, physical health over the course of high school, but I mean, for me now, and also personally as a parent, as my kids come into their teenage years, like they're going to be most influenced by their peers and the adults around them. Yes, they will have parents, but they're going to stop listening. That's sort of developmentally appropriate that as they get older, they're going to seek advice more often from their peers and from the adults at school. And parents, as you probably know, you sort of start to know nothing. And of course, they're still looking at the model and everything that we do, we just hope will sink in. But to me, this is about like investment in the people around your kids as much as it is these actual experiences. And so I think having my best piece of advice is to think about like what are the goals? What do you want the high school experience to be? Who do you want to be as a parent, and who do you want your kid to be in 3 years, 4 years when they're finishing, and what are the places that you think are gonna best equip them and you to get there. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everyone. You guys are fabulous. Of course, I think that. And anyone on this call right now, I don't have any questions right now. And I know this platform can be a little hard, just because you have to type the question and it might be specific to you. So like I shared before, if you want to email me and be in touch with specific questions to any of these ladies, please let me know and then I can make that happen. I really appreciate everyone joining this evening. It is recorded, so we'll also send out a recording to everyone if they want to share it with anyone. And we appreciate you signing on for the evening, and hopefully you got little helpful nuggets from these ladies and can take those with you when you're making a decision. So appreciate everyone being on here. Appreciate you guys. So thanks so much. Have a good night.